The debate is underway all over the country over who won the debate last night between Sarah Palin and Joe Biden. It was a polite exchange, but was there a clear winner? Early Show national correspondent Jeff Glor kicks off our coverage this morning. Good morning, Jeff.
Hey, Maggie, good morning to you. You could feel everyone inside this building here last night braced for a big moment, perhaps a campaign-altering moment. While that may not have happened, there was still plenty to watch.
Hey, can I call you Joe? Okay, good.
After asking if she could call her opponent Joe, Sarah Palin unapologetically portrayed herself as a Joe too, an average one, using expressions like darn right and doggone it.
Just everyday American people, Joe Six-Pack, hockey moms across the nation.
Right or wrong, most of the pre-debate attention was on the confident, smiling Alaskan governor and whether she would pass this huge test.
I may not answer the questions the way that either the moderator or you want to hear, but I'm going to talk straight to the American people and let them know my track record also.
The debate first focused heavily on economic issues.
The economic policies of the last 8 years have been the worst economic policies we've ever had.
Palin and Biden spent time sparring over taxes.
We need tax relief for Americans so that jobs can be created here.
The middle class is the economic engine. It's fair. They deserve the tax breaks, not the super wealthy you're doing.
On foreign policy, the differences on Iraq were stark. End the war versus win the war.
We will end this war. For John McCain, there is no end in sight to end this war. Fundamental difference. We will end this war.
We cannot afford to lose there, or we're going to be no better off in the war in Afghanistan either. We have got to win in Iraq. And
Biden frequently linked the Bush White House with John McCain.
The issue is, how different is John McCain's policy going to be than George Bush's?
Palin, acknowledging blunders over the past 8 years, responded by accusing Biden of looking back.
But for a ticket that wants to talk about change and looking into the future, there's just too much finger pointing backwards to ever make us believe that that's where you're going.
But throughout, both stayed cordial, spending most of the time criticizing the top of the other ticket as opposed to each other.
So through the course of 90 minutes, there were no major mistakes, no major zingers, and quite possibly, Maggie, no clear winner. So let the spin begin.
Let the spin begin right now, Jeff, because I am joined by two former White House insiders. Dee Dee Myers was a press secretary for President Clinton, and Dan Bartlett was a communications director for President Bush. Both of them are now CBS News consultants, and I thank you both for joining us this morning. My question is for both of you. It's the same question. Reading the newspapers this morning, talking to people here, the consensus seems to be that Sarah Palin appealed more to average Americans in her language, but that Joe Biden gave more crisp and specific answers. I'd like to know if you agree, and which do you think is more important? And I'll begin with you, Dan.
Well, I think you're right. I think both of them played to their strengths. Joe Biden, who's been in the United States Senate for over 30 years, demonstrated that level of experience in a lot of his answers. But I think also Sarah Palin did something that John McCain wanted, and that was to demonstrate why he picked somebody who was from outside of Washington, somebody who could relate with the average Joe, as she says herself. So in both respects, I think both campaigns got out of this debate what they wanted. And I think in that package you heard them say that it's basically a tie. Well, in this case, I think a tie goes to Sarah Palin because expectations were so much that they didn't think that she was going to be able to perform very well.
Dee Dee, does the tie go to Sarah Palin?
Well, it won't surprise you. I disagree with that a little bit. I think Dan's absolutely right that both campaigns got quite a bit of what they wanted out of it. But I think that since Senator Obama is developing a little bit of a lead, the McCain campaign needed a little bit of something to shake things up last night. Certainly Sarah Palin survived the night, which was, in some ways, she met the expectations. But I think what Senator Biden did was he drew stark contrasts between where Senator Obama wants to take the country and where Senator McCain wants to take the country. On taxes, he talked about how the Obama plan would cut taxes on families making less than $250,000, while the McCain campaign would only cut taxes on the wealthy. He talked about getting out of Iraq, whereas he pointed out that the McCain campaign, or President McCain, didn't have a plan for getting out of Iraq. And I think he challenged McCain's credentials as a maverick, talking about how McCain has been a maverick on some things, but not the things that matter to the American people, not the things that matter to the middle class. So on points at the end of the day, I think as people look back at the substance of this debate, they're going to say Biden got the edge.
Dan, was it a miss for her not to outline the differences between John McCain and President Bush? Was it a miss for her to just manage to stay above the fray without getting specific?
Well, I thought at times she was more aggressive than I actually anticipated with regards to Barack Obama's, for example, his history of raising taxes. So in some respects, I thought she did a pretty good job of mixing it up. No doubt about it that the core strategy of the Obama campaign is to try to link John McCain to George W. Bush. And there are probably times in which she could have been more aggressive in that. But at the same time, I think the McCain campaign understands that they have to have clear contrast with Barack Obama, not as much with George W. Bush. And that's where her focus was. Again, I think her real objective here was to really try to tap into the many of Americans who are, for the first time, maybe contributing to this election. And in that respect, I thought she did a pretty good job.
All right, Dan Bartlett, Dee Dee Myers, that's all the time we have. I thank you both for joining us.